Joining us now to break down the state of the 2020 race is Marc Lotter, the Director of Strategic Communications for the 2020 Trump campaign. Marc, when we look at the 2018 midterms, Democrats were able to flip the House, but something that's different in 2020 is the fact that President Trump is now going to be on top of that ticket. And that's something that'll bring out turnout for Republicans. But as we look at not only that race, but also down the ticket as well, do Republicans fare better against progressive challengers than moderate ones?
Yeah, I think absolutely. There's no question, because all you have to do is look at the news every night. When you are seeing these radicals who are taking over our cities, setting fires and desecrating churches, toppling statues, those are supporters of Joe Biden and the radical left that now runs the Democrat Party. So it's a very powerful image when Republicans stand for law and order, for honoring our country's heritage, but also making sure that we can adjust and make the necessary reforms that are as we move forward. It's a very easy to understand thing for people to understand that you can go with this radicalism or you can go with what makes America great.
And it is kind of an interesting thing because the more progressive wing of the party has not had a good year so far. I mean, Senator Bernie Sanders, of course, lost way earlier than people thought, but then a lot of progressive challengers, too, have just fallen flat. But then when we look ahead to what Joe Biden is doing as well, some people would consider him the more moderate, but he himself has said that he wants to be more of a vehicle for the progressive wing of the party. I mean, he said it himself that he wants to be the type of vehicle that brings in people like Pete Buttigieg, is the name that he used at the time. But we just see the people that he's staffing around him, and it is a more progressive wing of the party. He might be the most progressive candidate to ever run for the position. So from the Trump campaign perspective, how do you plan on combating that? Is that something that you want to highlight?
Absolutely. And all we have to do is talk about what Joe Biden wants to do if he gets elected into office. He said it. The first thing he's going to do, raise taxes. He wants to do the Green New Deal. He wants to put energy workers and manufacturing workers out of a job. And then look to what he's already doing. He has not been able to control the radical leftist wing of his party, the ones that are out there right now trying to tear down statues outside of the White House, desecrating churches, calling for tearing down statues of Jesus and shattering of stained glass windows. These are the kinds of people who are currently advising and supporting Joe Biden. So you really have to ask yourself, why won't Joe Biden stand up, get out of his basement, and stand up for the rule of law, as opposed to just letting these radicals give us a preview of what life under President Biden would be in America?
And speaking of that, at some point he will have to come out and start doing more appearances. But I think the big point that a lot of people are looking for is when we finally get to debates, the one-on-one matchup between Joe Biden and President Trump. I know that the Trump campaign was looking to get maybe at least an extra debate on the stage. The Biden campaign said that they are down for 3 instead of, I believe, the 4 that was asked for initially. What does that tell you?
Well, it tells us that Joe Biden's handlers know he's not up to it. He's not up to the challenge. And so they're going to continue to try to hide him in the basement. But the reason why we wanted more debates is because with the advent of early voting and because of the coronavirus pandemic, we know a lot of people are going to be voting earlier this year than they ever have before. And none of the debates have started when early balloting starts. So shouldn't people be able to see Joe Biden out from under hiding in his basement against Donald Trump on the same stage before they start casting their ballots? Of course, Joe Biden's people are afraid of that, so they don't want to see that happen.
It's a really interesting point. I mean, that makes a lot of sense because you don't want people necessarily making their decisions before they've even heard the arguments from the two candidates. And building on that point a little bit, too, of course, we saw President Trump kick off his rally over the weekend. A lot of people are talking about the crowd size, but I think something more definitive to go off of is the viewership numbers that came of that. It seems like people may be having a little bit of concerns regarding coronavirus when it comes to physically going out. But then when you look at the numbers that were across not only your different digital platforms, but also on television, other places on the internet as well, I mean, the viewership numbers were through the roof. So looking ahead to a potential next rally, is there going to be a greater focus on a digital element, or what type of adjustments do you think will be made?
Well, I think it'll be both, but let's not forget every night of the week, the Trump campaign is doing online programming at 8 o'clock Eastern. And each one of those programs we do 7 nights a week, and we've been doing them for a couple of months, has gotten a million people watching at a minimum. Some of them are up there in 2.5 million. I mean, that's better ratings than everything on CNN and most of the programs on MSNBC. So that's what we're doing out of our dining rooms. Wait till we get these rallies going again. We'll see more of those 20 million kinds of viewership that we saw in Tulsa. And trust me, it's going to happen. It's going to happen soon.
No, and when we talk about that digital arm, I don't think people understand how important it is. I'm a broken record when I keep saying this, but especially given this current moment, when you compare the viewership, for example, the Joe Biden virtual events and the Trump campaign virtual events, I don't think it just speaks to necessarily the amount of viewers on there, but the enthusiasm behind those viewers. I think that's something that is going to be very important, especially as we get closer to November, and especially as people start talking about a second wave. I think the digital campaign is really going to be where this fight really ends up at. But Marc Lotter,
You're absolutely right.
You don't have to tell me, Mark. No, I'm kidding. Mark, it's always appreciated having you on. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Good to talk to you.